Come December, Witchfire is due for an update where the astronauts will introduce melee weapons into the game. At least that's what's stated on the website. It'll be interesting to see how melee weapons will add new mix-ups with how they play into the magic and weapon systems. I'm looking forward to the new ways to approach combat, and I'll definitely be making new build videos with the new gear. But until then, there's already a way to play a more melee-focused playstyle. Or at least a close quarters combat focused playstyle. For the setup, I'm using the Psycho Pump and the Fire Breath, which are shoo-ins on this build for obvious reasons. But you really need the extra melee charged Rosary Bead to bring out the feel of this build. Even though those two will recharge melee, the idea is to pop off that charged melee as much as possible to keep the Psycho Pump full. So you really want 2 charges up at all times. Soften up enemies with the Psycho Pump, and if they're not dead by the time you dash to them, finish them off by stringing together melee kills to refill the Psycho Pump's magazine. I also used the extra spell charge Rosary so I could run with 2 Fire Breaths to either weaken monsters for melee kills or finish them off with it to recharge melee. I've used the Psycho Pump and Fire Breath together before, just randomly in combination with other gear. But since I was never playing a full melee build, I never optimized all the gear like I have in this build to see just how powerful it was. It actually turns out to be very fun and extremely effective. Remember though, this isn't a melee only build. It's just focused on using your charged melee and close quarters with your other gear. I feel like the Psycho Pump is far more effective when I can constantly mop up weakened enemies with melee kills so I don't have to worry so much about reloading. Then you toss in the Burning Stake and the Dynamo Ring and you're just tearing through the map. It's also nice that the Burning Stake combos well with the Fire Breath, since Fire Breath deals more damage to already burning enemies. And both will put enemies in range of dying to melee, or just dying outright to the Psycho Pump. Or just dying outright. That happens a lot. And the Rotweaver 2 is an excellent weapon when you're constantly playing so close to enemies. And it's way better than the Cricket. I mostly look at my secondary as something to use when my main weapon runs into trouble, but the Psycho Pump doesn't really run into trouble all like that. I did use the Rotweaver though to avoid the long reload of the Psycho Pump when I couldn't feasibly get kills with melee. Since this is a close quarters build, use the Braid of a Seductress or the Book of Serpents to punish the attackers that get through. In this footage I used the Braid since it gives a damage reduction and I felt it fit more with the CQC build. I didn't get footage of the Book of Serpents, but I did go on several runs with it and it's certainly an effective option as it will spread decay and it pairs with the Rotweaver. And it'll just outright nuke enemies who hit you. Unfortunately, there's no melee-focused prophecies. Not yet, but hopefully that'll change with the melee weapons coming into the game. But this build isn't really reliant on arcanas like some other weapons, so you'll be just fine getting by with whatever you want to slot in. But definitely use Prophecy of Fire for our 2 fire spells. This build turns out to be crazy powerful. I like it for more than that though, because it gives an alternate playstyle than what I'm used to in this game. And come December, it'll be interesting to see how this build evolves once actual melee weapons are introduced.